My coach's journey began with a decision way back in 2020. It was a few weeks before the impact of COVID began reaching across the globe with a merciless journey of its own. Around this time I learned that Concordia International School Shanghai was looking for a maker design and integration coach for middle school. Hello, my name is Andre de Coker and I am the middle school maker design and integration coach at Concordia International School Shanghai. This is my story, the ambiguous journey of a new coach. I used to think that a coach's work was clearly defined by a job description, the school vision, curriculum, and administrative oversight. But throughout this year, while working on Eduro learnings, the coach Micro-credential, I've come to realize that this journey is one of much more ambiguity. Both in theory and practice as a new coach, I often seem to linger in a sea of confusion, facing more questions than actual answers. However, through this experience, I've also come to understand that this coach's journey does not necessarily have a clearly defined destination. The journey is the destination. Coaching is a process aimed at improving student learning by developing teacher capacity. My coaching story, this journey enshrined by ambiguity, is best told within the confines of another process, that of design thinking. Design thinking is often depicted in diagrams as a linear process, yet it is better represented as a convolution of inquiry pathways leading to and from the process, which finally materializes in a workable solution to the defined problem. To understand my ambiguous journey will require viewers to immerse themselves within the goal I chose to set for myself. Develop an understanding of the role of maker design and integration coach from an individual and organizational view within the Concordia context, while building the relationships and relational skills and competencies required for research and development of integration practices, along with the management of the middle school makerspace. Defining the role proved challenging as my supervisors and I had conflicting ideas as to what the job description entailed. Once we had achieved mutual understanding, I was able to align myself more with their desired intention for the role within the school. I informally engaged a few of my colleagues whom I believed could be early adopters of maker and integration ideas. Together we began to discuss and imagine possible connections between their units of study and the use of the makerspace. It was a wild and vibrant time of planning and creating opportunities for students to express their learning by constructing a product.
This year I've been lucky enough to be coached by Andre. Andre is willing to step in wherever he is needed, from brainstorming, designing a unit or a lesson, modeling his expertise, all the way to being an extra hand in the classroom. I think his goal is always to get students to a deeper understanding and to help the teacher wherever possible. The two big projects that we worked on were engineering and genetics. In the engineering unit, I bring students down to the makerspace, and so Andre focused on two main questions with me there. We looked at how can we group the students for maximum learning, and how can we set up the makerspace and the learning environment in a way that will be conducive to group work. I think with my work with Andre, I will continue to do this lesson, but it will be more inquiry based, and I've learned some great strategies on how to set up the makerspace in the future. The other one we looked at a whole unit. Before I taught it, we looked at the genetics unit, and we started by looking at what the goals are for the students. This is something that I've taught at this school for 3 years and I'm very passionate about, but I probably would have done the same old thing that I've always done. And so it was really helpful to get a fresh perspective, to look at the standards again, and then to start identifying where students might struggle. One thing we have at our school is a large population of English language learners. And Andre has some expertise in literacy skills. And so he helped to identify a lesson where the reading might be too much for the students. And so we made a jigsaw, and he modeled how to lead that in class. It was leveled reading, and he worked with one of the groups for the first class, and then I was able to work with the lowest group in the rest of the classes. I think that that was extremely helpful because there's so much literacy in science, and now I feel that I have more strategies for helping some of the students who might need extra scaffolds.
One of the challenges in teaching middle school social studies is finding opportunities for today's students to experience just a glimpse of how children their age live through significant periods in history. Before embarking on our Great Depression project unit this year, Andre approached me to see if there was a way to utilize the vast supply of makerspace materials the school has to provide. The goal for each student is to turn something of insignificant value and make it into something that is both entertaining and sustainable. From the moment we sat down to plan, Andre had an array of ideas to choose from. The one that stuck with me was his idea for students to create their own vintage toy. In the next 3 meetings, Andre had everything laid out for me with step-by-step instructions for the students to follow for maximum outcomes while only using items that were present during the 1920s and 30s. Cardboard, paper plates, wood planks, string and yarn, there was plenty for students to choose from. Throughout the project, students were engaged and were supported by Andre by assisting and offering feedback on an individual basis. From board games to handheld toys to flying discs, student ingenuity was at an all-time high. Providing a time for students to create without the use of technology enabled them to unplug from the world and create through collaboration. Overall, quite a memorable and rewarding experience for everyone.
Most of the coaching that we have done has been a co-planning. What I really enjoy about working with Andre is his out-of-the-box thinking. Like, he will always think of things that would never come to my mind, particularly when it comes to maker design and how to get kids just getting in there and getting their hands dirty and doing some hands-on work with the projects. Some of the highlights of this year that we did together, we created a museum, and so that was a way that the kids could show what they learned around our media literacy course. And so Andre helped me to design these teaching towers. We worked together to create the content that would go on these rotating towers. So I have really enjoyed my experience being coached by Andre this year.
Ambiguity is part of the journey. Learn to navigate the process, realizing that coaching involves people, ideas, and points of view, which all end up being quite a messy combination at times. Coaching is communal. Relationships matter. This is the biggest challenge for me, learning to relate to all stakeholders in order to transform the student experience. Low-hanging fruit, a segue into deeper coaching experiences. Use the things that come easier as a stepping stone into creating deeper coaching opportunities. Create a vision for your role and communicate it through word and action. My story continues. The journey towards my goal, ongoing.